Everybody loves dads, stories, and the Marine Corps. What could be better than Marine Corps dads who tell stories? Here's another story with veteran storyteller John Sugar Jr., a Marine Corps dad.
Tonight, we're going to tell the story of the invention of the butterfly knife. Once upon a time, there was a backyard, and in this backyard was a wonderful garden full of all kinds of flowers and living things and animals and all kinds of wonderful little critters. And in one corner of the garden was a colony of caterpillars. Now, these caterpillars were some cool dudes. They like to have fun. They like to skateboard. They like to say, "What up, bruh?" every time they saw each other. They like to say, "What up? What up? What up?" Every time the caterpillars said, "What up?" Every time somebody walked by the caterpillars, "What up?" Every time they walked by them, they'd say, "What up?" And they were the friendliest, funniest caterpillars around. And everybody would ask them, "Hey, are you guys ready to become butterflies?" "Nah, man. We're going to stay caterpillars like the whole time. What up?" All day long, "What up?" And they would eat their leaves, and they'd have fun, "What up?" Until one day, the wasps moved in. And they were like a biker gang of wasps. And they would come by and they would beat people up. They beat up all the bugs. One time they beat up a ladybug. Ah! And everybody was all mad at the wasps because the wasps were beating everybody up. And they couldn't fight the wasps because the wasps had stingers. And so they couldn't fight them. But then the caterpillars, they had a meeting one night. And in their meeting, they talked about what they could do. And they learned something about butterflies. So that night, they all wrapped up in blankets like a chrysalis. And the next morning, the wasps came by. And they tried to take the caterpillar stuff, only there weren't any caterpillars. And they came into the caterpillar's room, and there were no caterpillars. And they looked up, and there they were on the ceiling. What up? And all the butterflies jumped down onto the wasps, and so all the wasps pulled out their stingers. And they got ready, but all the butterflies had knives. Because butterfly knives issued automatically to every butterfly when they finish metamorphosis. And all the butterflies pulled out their knives. Shing! And all the wasp says, and battle was joined. And all the butterflies said, "What-da!" And they charged the wasps, and they started shanking wasps. And wasps were like, "Ah!" Every time they got shanked by a butterfly. They couldn't see because the butterfly's wings were so big and colorful that they couldn't get away. Every time a butterfly shanked a wasp. And the wasps started crawling and dragging themselves out. As they tried to get... And their stingers didn't help them at all. Because they couldn't hit the butterflies. Their bodies were too skinny. But the butterflies like, "Shank, what up?" And kept stabbing wasps. And so the wasps flew away. And they didn't want to do it anymore. And that's how the butterflies and their knives saved all of bugdom in the backyard. The end.
That was another story with John Sugar Jr., a Marine Corps dad. Check the show notes for links to his Patreon and website at creativegrumbles.com.